Carol Burnett still obeys one rule that's baffled Hollywood for 47 years. She flat out refuses to watch her own 1977 Gong Show sketch. Industry chatter flared again last autumn, hinting that her wickedly funny turn on Apple TV Plus's Palm Royale would be her final curtain. Asked if she was really bowing out, the 90-something legend cracked, "I'll retire when the laughs stop," and they're still coming. Fans exhaled, but the rumor lingers, quietly stoking curiosity every time a reporter brings up Season 2. A childhood built on broken bottles. Long before she became TV's comic queen, little Carol tiptoed through a Texas apartment littered with half-empty liquor glasses. Both parents leaned hard on booze, vanishing for days. So by age 5, she'd mastered silence and side-eye. When they finally drifted off for good, her maternal grandmother scooped her into a single room in a crumbling Hollywood boarding house, the kind of place where pipes rattled louder than lullabies. Survival there required imagination, and Carol's arrived in the form of Karen, an invented twin with better clothes and brighter confidence. She'd scamper up the fire escape, swap outfits, and return as Karen, convincing the other tenants that two bubbly blondes, not one scared kid, lived next door. But that was just the warm-up. Saturday matinee salvation. Every weekend, Carol and her grandmother surrendered a precious quarter, 10% of their entire income, for tickets to the Vine Street Movie Palace. Inside the velvet darkness, Fred Astaire floated, Ginger spun, and Tarzan's jungle yell echoed like electricity. Carol memorized Johnny Weissmuller's cry, practiced it until paint flakes shook from the boarding house ceiling, and unknowingly trained the diaphragm that would one day shake studio rafters. When the credits rolled, reality snapped back. They even borrowed theater bathroom tissue because rent money didn't stretch that far. Poor, yes, but newly armed with a secret weapon in her lungs. And destiny was about to whisper twice. 2 strangers, 2 envelopes, 1 life detour. Tuition at UCLA cost $50, insurmountable until an anonymous benefactor slipped in the exact sum. A year later, an even stranger twist. At a San Diego party where Carol was pocketing hors d'oeuvres for dinner, a La Jolla shipbuilder pressed a $1,000 check into her palm. His 3 rules sounded like a fairy tale spell. Never reveal his name. Use the cash only to reach New York, and repay the kindness to others. Carol's paid it forward ever since, quietly mailing scholarship checks to young comics that remind her of herself, hungry, wild-eyed, and dead set on chasing a stage. New York, grit, parodies, and pennies. Mid-1950s Manhattan wasn't glamorous. It was 4 actresses sharing 1 bathroom at the rehearsal club, $18 a week. Carol hustled hats at a theater coat check till midnight, then auditioned at dawn. Her break arrived with a ridiculous love ballad to Secretary of State John Foster Dulles. She crooned the stiff diplomat's name like it was Romeo's. The absurd number destroyed audiences on The Ed Sullivan Show, announcing a new comedic tornado had landed. But the biggest blast was waiting in the wings. Broadway crowns its loudest princess. Once Upon a Mattress thrust Burnett into a Tony nomination by letting her bellow, belly flop, and bulldoze the prim idea of a fairy tale heroine. Critics sniffed, audiences howled, and producers learned that when Burnett left the cast, ticket sales flatlined within a week. Her voice was now Broadway's unofficial air raid siren. Still, television was itching to borrow that power, and what happened next would reorder Monday nights forever. A variety show that rewired primetime. On 11 September 1967, The Carol Burnett Show exploded onto CBS, and 30 million people made appointments with their couches. 25 Emmys piled up, live sketches proved a woman could command and direct primetime chaos, and Carol's Tarzan yell became a national in-joke before cell phone ringtones existed. Behind the curtain, friction sparked genius. Harvey Korman's bruised ego once prompted him to quit on a Friday. By Monday, after Burnett's ultimatum, he re-entered the studio, literally skipping down the hallway, earning a door plaque that read, "Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky." Meanwhile, Tim Conway'd save his wildest bits for taping, ad-libbing the infamous elephant story that shattered every co-star's composure in real time. But one sketch would freeze the laughter, when comedy tore off its mask. In 1977, the recurring family segment veered suddenly into heartbreak. The Gong Show positioned Eunice Higgins before judges who gonged her mid-song. Cameras lingered as humiliation sank in. Studio lights dimmed without music or applause.
Crew members sniffed, critics raved, and Burnett felt a bruise so personal she vowed never to view that tape again. She's kept the vow for 47 years, calling the moment too real, like ripping out a healed stitch. Viewers, meanwhile, still debate whether that was the most honest 2 minutes to air on any variety show. Slaying a tabloid Goliath. Just 1 year earlier, Burnett had fought a different battle, this time against the National Enquirer. The rag printed that she was loud and tipsy at a fancy Washington restaurant, seated near Henry Kissinger. The story was fiction, and it stung. Alcohol had already gutted her family tree. She sued, endured brutal courtroom grilling, and finally won a verdict of $300,000 in damages plus $1.3 million punitive, later reduced on appeal, but still a landmark blow against reckless gossip. The case forced tabloids to think twice and cemented Burnett as a fearless truth slinger off stage as well. But another storm was brewing closer to home. Love, loss, and the high cost of spotlight. Her first marriage to actor Don Soroyan cracked under the weight of stalled careers and grief over his daughter's passing. Alcohol swallowed his spark, and the couple parted ways. Months later, she wed producer Joe Hamilton, forging a TV dream team and a combined household of 11 kids. Success ballooned, but so did pressure. Deadlines, expectations, and children tugging at both parents. By 1984, the marriage frayed beyond repair. Yet paperwork never scared Burnett. What haunted her was watching addiction tiptoe toward her eldest daughter, Carrie's spiral, and the hardest kind of love. Carrie tasted cocaine at 13, chased pills, mushrooms, anything that muffled the echo of being Carol Burnett's daughter. Mom enforced rehab after rehab, choosing tough love that sometimes looked like betrayal. Carrie once called her the enemy, but sobriety finally stuck in her 20s, and the two wrote the semi-autobiographical play Hollywood Arms, a triumph they intended to share for decades. Fate rewrote the script. Pneumonia triggered by lung cancer stole Carrie at 38. Burnett finished the play anyway, telling friends I owed her the standing ovation. She still wears Carrie's bracelet on stage, a silent reminder that comedy can bloom behind grief. Guardian mode again. In 2020, Burnett marched back into court, petitioning to protect her teenage grandson Dylan, while her youngest daughter Erin battled substance demons that wouldn't loosen their grip. Legal documents granted Carol and husband Brian Miller temporary guardianship, authorizing them to change Dylan's school, housing, and daily routine to keep the boy safe. The world gasped that an 87-year-old was stepping into parenthood again, but Burnett shrugged. Family, she insists, is never a finished job. And soon, she'd remind Hollywood that acting is never finished either. Breaking Bad in the best way. At 89, Burnett popped up in Better Call Saul as Marion, a sweet widow with sharper instincts than Saul Goodman expected. One shaky finger on her life alert button turned a casual scene into white-knuckle suspense. Bob Odenkirk later joked he'd told creator Vince Gilligan, "I'm not taking out America's grandma, pick another ending." Viewers cheered the cameo, Critics hailed it as a masterclass in understatement, and Burnett proved she could weaponize stillness as effectively as slapstick. But she wasn't done flipping expectations. Gibberish, comas, and comeback rumors. Palm Royale cast her as Norma Della Corte, a Palm Beach matriarch who spends half the series unconscious before jolting awake and blurting improvised gibberish that somehow lands punchlines. Castmates admitted the nonsense dialect left them stifling laughter. Almost immediately, gossip sites dubbed the show Burnett's Farewell. She countered, "Why pack up the toys when you're still having fun?" but slyly added that she's choosy about new scripts. Emmy voters took note, handing her a historic nomination as the oldest woman ever considered for supporting actress in a comedy. Suddenly, the industry asked, could a nonagenarian sweep awards season twice? The answer may await a second season, but Burnett's to-do list is far from empty. The quiet dynasty of generosity. Remember those 2 mysterious checks that jump-started her dream? Burnett never forgot. Every year she funds scholarships at UCLA's School of Theater, Film, and Television, plus random angel envelopes slipped to struggling comics. She refuses publicity, citing the unnamed shipbuilder rule. Occasionally, a grateful recipient goes public, but she never does. Instead, she closes every Q&A show by pulling her earlobe, a signal once meant for her late grandma, and letting out the Tarzan yell audiences begged to hear. The roar that once rattled peeling plaster now echoes through packed auditoriums, proof that some childhood tricks never lose their magic. Why that tape stays locked away. So why won't she press play on the Gong Show footage? Maybe because some fuel drives you forward only when you don't stare straight into the flame. The sketch distilled every humiliation she'd felt. The nights watching her parents choose bottles over lullabies, the cost-cutting trips for stolen theater tissue, and the auditions that ended with agents snickering at a wild Texas accent. Rewatching would mean reliving, and Burnett has always preferred rewriting pain into punchlines instead. Legacy in motion. Today, she plans schedules around long walks, a vocal warm-up she calls Tarzan Light, and the next grandchild's school recital. She's scouting scripts that scare me a little, convinced that creativity calcifies when comfort wins. Whether Palm Royale returns or not, she's already taped a voice cameo for an animated holiday film and is flirting with narrating a true crime podcast, because why let her pipes retire when microphones are everywhere? A final laugh, still loading. If the spotlight dims tomorrow, Burnett's legend is already etched. The first woman to conquer variety television, the comic who sued gossip giants and won, the grandmother who hits courtrooms to save grandsons, and the performer who can silence 30 million viewers with one long, wordless stare. For the rest of us, the message is clear. Greatness isn't always the sketches replayed 1,000 times. Sometimes it's the one performance kept behind glass, still powering the legend in silence.